This is Wager Talk's new late show ahead of the spread, where we check out the open numbers, notable line movements, and discuss key matchups and angles for the next day. So you have an early edge for tomorrow's game. I'm Ronald Cabang and the one and only Skee Prophet here with me to co-host the show. Before we head into checking out the open line movements and key movements, I'd like to mention that we are live today. So drop any questions you have in the comments. We'll try to get to them as we go through the show. So we can get straight into it. I'll share my screen here and bring up the Wager Talk free live odds page. 1 second here.
Yeah, I'm trying to do my part too, and I don't know. We're getting used to doing this, so I'm trying to make sure a tweet is going out and stuff too.
Perfect. All right, let's see here. All right, perfect. So we got first game up. We got Portland and Detroit. The line opened up at -6. Moving up to 6.5 at most books, we see the total at 226.5 at open, and coming down to 225.5 at most books here. If we go to the Money Ballers side, we have some situational notes. Blazers in a letdown spot. So is the Pistons. They're in a letdown spot too. Fourth game in 6 nights, third game in 4 nights. Both teams coming off big wins. Portland against Milwaukee, Detroit against Minnesota. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is one where I'm not really looking too much at the spread. I just don't really trust either team to lay anything. So what I will say, if I'm going to bet this game, it has to be Cade Cunningham for me. He's been pretty good without Ivy. The one game he got in foul trouble, his minutes, his PRA, everything was pretty low, but he had 46-9 last game, 33, 4 and 7 before that, 20, 11 and 18 before that, 35, 7 and 11. So without Ivy, it's just a lot of the responsibility, whether it's playmaking, scoring, all of it is going to fall on his shoulders. Portland, not a strong defensive team. So we don't have a number yet for Cade PRA, maybe just assists, but he's the one I'm looking to play on in this game.
Real quick on that note, like instead of the spread there, when you look at the total and you see two teams in a letdown spot, do you think that would you look at both teams kind of struggling offensively and then look towards the under in that situation?
I don't know. I kind of feel the other way. Like if they're in a letdown, they don't really want to play any defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it could be both, but that's usually how I view it. I do see the total coming down. I don't trust either one of these teams to get stops. So I don't think
That's
I would
true.
agree with it. It sounds like you agree with it.
I kind of agree with it. I think if you look at both teams kind of letting down offensively, because they did put up 115 again. So Detroit put up 119 against Minnesota. Portland put up only 105. So I mean, if anything, I would see a letdown on the Detroit side. You can see they scored 98 and 105 against a couple other teams. So against slower paced teams like Charlotte or Orlando, Portland's a slower paced team too. If you look at their pace the last 10 games, 21st in pace. So I could see an under type game here. Let's move on to the next one. Phoenix and Philly. So the line opened up at 3.5 for Philly as home favorites. Total at 226.5. That's come down a lot to 223.5 at most books. If you're in Vegas, you got South Point at 225 still, and then a 3.5 still pretty much available throughout all the books there. If we look at some of the situational notes on the Sun side, first game of back-to-back. They got Charlotte tomorrow, and that's with travel. If you look at the Sixers side, in-season revenge, fourth game in 6 nights. Fourth game in 6 nights, at least is not a back-to-back. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, fourth game in 6 nights. Also, the last 6 games for Philadelphia have all been on the road. So
First game
just
back,
a
yeah.
whole lot of traveling for them. Phoenix, I know they haven't looked great their last 2 games they've lost, but I just feel like, when you integrate a star back into the lineup, they could be a little bit rusty. It could be conditioning. It could just throw everything off for the team. So Booker's now been back for a couple games. I want to say he's been bad. I think he's like 11 for 35 or 11, somewhere like that. Like he has not been shooting the ball good, but it's going to get better. And I think versus 76ers team, this is a spot to do it. So I would be looking towards the Phoenix side plus the points.
Phoenix side plus the points. Yeah, that makes sense to me. You kind of see them in the opposite directions right now. Look at their offense; they've been really struggling. But like you said, with a couple games on the board for Booker, it seems like this might be the spot to take advantage of. 6 straight games on the road first game home back home, and that's usually typically a fade spot, right? Um, let's move on to the next game. Orlando and New York. So totals opened up at 209, 209 and a half at most books here. We have the line at opening up at minus 10 and a half for New York, and it's to minus 11. So it's gone up to minus 11 here. Situational notes, we look at, there's a lot here. All right, so we got double digit in season revenge for the Magic. Fourth game in 6 nights, third game in 4 nights, second game of back to back. I think only two teams are on a back to back tomorrow. If you look at the Knicks, rest advantage coming off a loss as a favorite, so a bounce back spot here. They did lose to Chicago. They gave a 139. That was Derrick Rose night. That was a big night for them. So I probably should have been on that game, but third game in 4 nights, fourth game in 6. So fatigue on both sides there for the Knicks and the Magic, but possible bounce back spot here for the Knicks. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this one is tough. I mean, it's a lot of people on the injury report too. You have Towns, McBride, both questionable. Brunson is probable. Anthony Black looks like he's questionable for the other side. And they're without Suggs now, Banchero, Franz Wagner, Gary Harris. It's a lot missing for this Magic team. So I look at this one. It makes me want to look at it from a total perspective. Like, who's really going to score the ball for the Magic? Like Toronto, that was their last game. They only scored 106. Like, Toronto's been giving it up to everybody.
Yep.
Outside of that, I mean, they scored 96 versus Detroit. We just talked about I don't really trust Detroit defensively. Yeah. It just shows how bad Orlando's offense is. They did have a 102 versus Brooklyn, who's another bad defensive team. Then they played New York. They scored 85, 88 versus Miami. I don't trust this Orlando team to score. Neither do the books. The number for the team total came out at 99 and a half. Only thing I'll say is Knicks defense has been a little bit inconsistent, but they've shown they can hold this team down. And it's really more so just a fade of the Magic offense if I'm looking that way. So that's on my list right here. And if I'm going to play a player prop, I mean, I talked about how bad that Magic offense is. Should be a hell of a lot of bricks. Karl Anthony Towns, we don't have any rebound numbers, but he's had 14 plus 4 of his last 5 games. I can absolutely see him doing it again in this game.
Would you look at the overall under though? Because if you're looking at the last 10 games for both the Magic and the Knicks, both slow-paced teams, Magic actually 30th, right? And then you look at defensive rating, 3rd there for Magic, 6th for the Knicks. Points per game allowed, top 6 for both. I mean, what would take you off of the under at this? What is it? What's the number? 208.5, 209. What would talk you off of that under?
Well, it just goes back to what I said. The Knicks defense, I feel like is inconsistent. Like, it'll look good sometimes. Versus Utah looks good. Versus Washington look good. Then, like you mentioned, they gave a 139 in Chicago. Yeah. A 132 to Washington too. Like, they pick and choose when to play. So that's a little bit what's holding me off. I trust the Magic defensively, and I don't trust the Magic to score. That's what I have going for the under though.
Gotcha. I see BD in the comments. Last 10 meetings, 8-2 to the under. So you can see here, actually, it's pretty good to the under. They went under by 20.5 points in their last matchup, under by 23. They did go over in the first matchup of the season, but last 2 went under by a huge margin. So I would probably
for like in unders too. I mean, rebound props. I said Cat. The other side, I see Casey says Batajde rebounds. I think there's going to be a lot of rebounds in this game.
Makes sense.
Josh Hart, maybe his double. He's been pretty good as well. I see a lot of rebounds up for grabs.
I like it. All right, let's go on to the next game. We have Milwaukee and Toronto. The Bucks open up at -7 as road favorites, down to 6.5. We have the total at 227 that open and steamed up already to 230. We're even seeing 230 in the halves already. So everybody's looking towards the over in this one. Some situational notes coming off a loss as a favorite. So the bounce back spot here, they did lose to Portland by 3. If you look at the Raptors side, double-digit revenge. They are the more rested team. They do have New York on deck, so they have to travel in a couple of days. So does Milwaukee, though. They go from Toronto back home. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, you have Giannis probable. Middleton looks like he's truly. I'm sorry, my bad. They're both probable. So it looks like we should have both of those guys for Milwaukee. For the flip side, RJ Barrett is questionable, but I feel like I read something where they're saying they think he'll finally be back from that illness. I
Hmm.
mean, what you said about the over, I already said I don't trust Toronto defensively. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk anybody off of that. But the side, like Milwaukee, they've been a team that's been up and down too. But they're off two embarrassing losses versus
Hmm.
bad teams as big favorites. And really, they've lost four of their last five games. I don't want to fault them too much because the two that were like, I think right after Christmas, they didn't
Yeah.
have Giannis and Dame for one. And I think they were missing one for the other, although they lost to bad teams. So I think they've just been a little bit out of rhythm,
Yeah.
similar to what I said for Booker. And now having a couple games under their belt, I think they'll have that rhythm back. They'll get back to sharing the ball, and I think they're focused after two losses in games they're
Hmm.
supposed to win. So I really want to try to get there with the Milwaukee side. I know for a good part of the season, Toronto was scrappy, but I think they can lose this game by double digits.
I agree with you there. If you look at some of the numbers in the last 10 games here, the defensive rating for both teams, that's a huge gap between the two, right? The Bucks giving up 109.2 per game, the Raptors 122 and a half. If you look at if you talk about, the rhythm of the team coming back at some point, it probably would be against a team that's struggling defensively. So I could see their offensive rating in the last 10 games at 22 bump up in the next one here. So I definitely think that the Bucks should be able to win this one by double digits as well. All right, let's go to the next game. Uh, Pacers and the Nets open up at -8 for the Pacers. Quickly steamed up to 9.5 at Circa. You could still get 8.5s at South Point, 9 at a couple spots, Caesars and stuff. The total 222.5 has stayed pretty much 222 and a half across the board. If we look at some of the situational notes, Pacers in season revenge, Nets fourth game in 6 nights, nothing much out of that, off of those. But you can see here on the Indiana side, they haven't gotten, they've been traveling pretty much for since prior to the new year, a good chunk of games here. They had a couple home games, but no consecutive home games. So they've had to travel a lot. They did have back to back against Boston, but do you think that travel fatigue for both teams actually kind of mess with their offense in this one? I know typically in the Pacers you want to look at overs, but possible travel fatigue.
Yeah, they've especially been, I think, playing more towards overs lately. I want to say 4-0-1 or 5-0-1, something like that, their last few games. I know their
Mhm.
last six games have all passed this number that we're looking at today. And if you told me this Nets team was healthy, I would be running to the window to bet the over. But you mentioned the spot a little bit here, fourth game in 6 nights for the Nets. And not only that, I mean, they're missing a lot of guys. Cam Thomas will be out, Cam Johnson, Bogdanovich. You still have D'Angelo Russell game time. Like the new look Nets with Russell and Cam Thomas,
Mhm.
that's buckets, buckets, buckets. But if you're
Yeah.
missing both of those guys, it's just hard for me to, the last game that they, or maybe not the last game, the game prior to last, like they were stuck on 111 forever. I think once Cam Thomas got hurt and then D'Lo got helped to the locker room with cramp, like they couldn't even score. Um, so I really don't want to trust that team to put the ball in the basket. Now, on that note, Pacers, not a team that I really trust defensively, but
Mhm.
it's really hard to think where the buckets are coming from Brooklyn. I think the
Mhm.
Pacers have kind of figured it out offensively, and I do usually say I don't want to lay points with teams I can't trust to get stops, but I'm looking at it. And these games that the Pacers win, I mean, they're not winning close games. They're winning games by margin. 11 of their
Mhm.
last 14 wins have been by 9+. So if you ask me who's winning this game, I would say Indiana. So I guess well, it did open 8. It's up as high as 9.5 now.
Mhm.
I still think I would only look their way.
Yeah, it does look to me. I feel like it's a double-digit win too. It's similar to what we saw with, or what we talked about with Milwaukee. But if you look at the last 10 games here, the Pacers here on the road, 5-1 ATS on the road. They got 0-4 ATS at home for the Nets there. And if you look at some of the offensive numbers, The Nets really struggling at home, 0-4, 4-0 to their team total under. So a lot of things really kind of pointing towards the Nets continuing to struggle offensively. I would probably only look towards the Pacers side here. All right, let's go to Dallas and Memphis. We have -4.5 open for Memphis at home. We're starting to see some 5.5s. You got DraftKings and Bet Online at 5.5 already. If you look at the total, 237.5. This has steamed down all the way to 232. If we look at some of the situational notes, we have the Mavs rest advantage. They got 2 or more days of rest. First game of back-to-back, though, they do have the Lakers tomorrow. If you look at the Grizzlies side, they have the in-season revenge. Third game in 4 nights. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, you have. Let me look at the injury report. You have Dallas without both Kyrie and Luka, right? So again, another situation where it's very hard to trust that team. They're 0-5 ATS without both of those guys this season. Also missing Exum there. We know. I mean, we've seen this Grizzlies team. They've had these laundry list of injuries all season. They had it last season too, and they were still good against the spread. I don't trust the Mavericks without those guys. I think the Grizzlies have shown that they can be trustworthy. They've been a really good first half team as well.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I thought I had the numbers written down. I think the Grizzlies are the spot here. Grizzlies, whether it's first half, full game. I know the Mavericks are the more rested team, but
yeah,
it's just I trust the guys on the Grizzlies a little bit more. So
what were you trying to look up as far as the numbers?
The first half numbers for either as a favorite or at home for the Grizzlies.
For the Grizzlies all season?
Yeah.
Or just the last 10 full season?
Full season. That's where the money baller come in handy right there.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. So we have the full season, and we want to look at their first half as favorites.
Yeah, either favorites
first
or
half
at
is
home.
favorites. So 12-4 ATS. You can see they do a lot better when they're, for some reason, when they're less rested than their opponent. 5-2 ATS, 6-1. Maybe there's like an over adjustment on the line there. And then you look at the Mavs side, 2-3 ATS when they're the more rested team. So again, like I feel like there's that over adjustment on the line when one team is more rested than the other. So it seems like they perform well in these situations.
And you see the favorite there. It says what 19-6 as a favorite in the first half.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it could be a spot where you double up with the Grizzlies. They get the first half and the full game done.
That makes sense to me. If you look at the offensive numbers here for the Mavs too, Mavs 5-1 to the under on the first leg of back-to-back games. So they tend to struggle in this spot here for the most part as far as scoring wise. Maybe they just slow the pace down a little bit. So there's a lot to think about in that game there. All right, let's go on to Clippers and Minnesota. We only got 3 games left. So Clippers, Minnesota, the line opened up at 2.5. -2.5 was Minnesota at home. We're seeing -3 at some books. Still, you can find some 2.5 still, but mostly -3. We have the total up at 213.5 for open, seeing as high as 215 at DraftKings and Bookmaker. You can still find some 214s or 214.5s at some books too. If we look at situational notes here, Clippers and Wolves, in-season revenge here for the Clippers. This is a bounce-back spot for the Wolves. They did lose to Detroit by 14, and then they're on the first leg of back-to-back games. They have New Orleans on deck. They have to travel to New Orleans. What are your thoughts on this one, Skee?
I mean, I didn't really look at lately, but it's 2 teams I think of that play at a slower pace, 2 teams that are good defensive teams, and you know they're going to win with defense over offense. So my first thought is to look towards the under. I see the market is disagreeing, but that's the way that I would play this game. I think this one was my least favorite out of the whole slate.
Yeah, defensively, top half of the league in the last 10 games as far as points per game allowed. And then they're both struggling offensively right now, 108 per game and then 107 per game pretty much for both of these teams. A lot of it has to do with the pace of play here. And then just like offensively, they're really just struggling to take care of the ball. You can see their turnover rate the last few games as well. You talk about the under. I mean, look at the clips right now, 7-3 to the under. Maybe that first half under might be a way to go. From an ATS perspective, they're both kind of struggling in their current spots. So I agree with that under. You can see their team total is struggling there too. Let's go to, we got two more games, San Antonio and Chicago. Um, the Spurs -1 open. We're seeing -3 already at majority of the books. You could still get a -2 at Caesars. Total 236.5. That's kind of stayed throughout, except for DraftKings. That's a 237. That's the only one that's not 236.5. All right, so if we go to the situational notes, you got the in-season revenge here for the Spurs. They are coming off an OT game, third game in 4 nights. The Bulls coming off a huge a letdown spot after scoring nearly 140 points over New York. Um, what are your thoughts on this one? Do you see a letdown on the Chicago side, or do you think that's a momentum booster for them?
Well, first off, I just want to. I did forget. Randall rebounds and assists has been pretty damn good. He's had 12 plus 7 of his last 8 for that last game that we talked about.
Yeah,
But the last time these teams played, Chicago kind of beat the Spurs down, but there was no Wemby. Um, Wemby's been playing damn good lately. It would be hard for me to look any other way than the Spurs here. I see the market has already went from what 1 to 3 here.
yeah, that's quick.
I think it's very simple in this game. If the Spurs are going to win and cover, I think Wemby has a lot to do with it. So I'll be looking towards his point prop. He's had 26 plus 7 of his last 9. I know he's been shooting a hell of a lot of threes too, but
Mm-hmm.
however you want to play on Wemby, I can't talk anybody off of that. I think that's my preference for this game.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's like a matchup nightmare for the Chicago team. I know that Chicago typically has a quicker pace too. Let me just check that. Yeah, third in pace. And is this something that where we would see team total over too on that Spurs side? Would you focus in on that? Because I mean, I don't think the Bulls' offense is that bad. 27th in the last 10 games. Because there might be maybe just a full game over as well.
Yeah, I don't. The thing is, if I like the Spurs, I kind of feel like it. Like this, are they going to play at the Spurs pace or the Bulls pace? It's kind of what we got to ask.
Got
Earlier
you.
in the season, I feel like the Bulls were pacing everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unsure if that has continued, so I don't feel very strong on the total.
Got you. All right, let's go on to the last game on the board. Miami and Sacramento. The Kings open up as 2.5 favorites at home, -3. We even see a 3.5 at bookmaker. Total 224.5. Um, Up to 225 at some books. Yeah, circa at 225 DraftKings. But there is a couple spots where you can get 224.5. I mean, Sacramento just kind of whooped Golden State. What are your thoughts on this one? Letdown spot after, I mean, second leg of back-to-back games. Third game in 4 nights, fourth and sixth. Heat, they got the in-season revenge, rest advantage. Also that bounce back spot as well. A huge loss to Utah by 36. I mean, I would think that they would want to bounce back strongly in this one. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, you also have Fox. I mean, he did miss the game today. He's also a
Mhm.
game time decision for tomorrow. I think it's two teams in opposite situations. Like you kind of mentioned it already. The Kings coming off of a huge win. Who knows how much they come in here like hungry for this game after that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I think Miami, like they came off a blowout loss, and it's been like it's a good thing that they suspended Jimmy Butler for the team at least. Like that has
Yep.
not been good for them. It's been a distraction. Now they have the guys who they know are going to be there, who want to be there,
Yep.
and I think they go and send a message that like, hey, we can compete with what we have right here. We don't even need Jimmy Butler over here. The Kings have been very what's the word? I'll just say they've been disappointing. That's what I'll
Mhm.
say. Most people expected them to be a lot better than 17 and 19 that we see right now. So I think this is a Miami spot, whether Fox plays or not. Obviously, if he's out, I think his fares better for Miami. And if I was going to look at anything on Sacramento side, I think whether Fox is in or out, some way, shape, or form, you got to look at Malik Monk. Probably if Fox is in, you just look at his points. Maybe if Fox is out, you do something like double double or points and assists or something like that.
Gotcha. Here's one thing with the Kings, because I was noticing they were failing to cover for a big period, and all of a sudden they've covered 3 out of 4. Is this like the books adjusting, or are they kind of putting things together? obviously the locker room has changed a little bit for the Kings as well, right? Both of these teams, as far as like coaching, and then the Heat struggling with players and all that stuff, player chemistry. I mean, is this like a turnaround for the Kings right now, or is it just matchup based?
Well, I think that game versus I'm trying to think if that game versus the Mavericks there they had Kyrie even. I don't know. I just maybe they've been catching teams in bad situations. It could be that
Yeah,
the market is now where it's supposed to be. It's just I still don't trust this team. I need to see it a little bit more for me to be able to trust them. Casey
gotcha.
says the blowout loss was the first game after the suspension. Well,
Oh,
I
gotcha.
still think Miami will start to trend in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. I think both of these teams will probably trend in the right direction towards the end of the season. All right, let's go. So we went through every game right there, talked about the lines, opening lines, and the line movement. Is there any game that you caught your eye as far as like wanting to break it down a little bit further?
Um, well, I'll say that Milwaukee game seems pretty good. I'll say yeah, Milwaukee seems pretty good. I think Milwaukee and I'll let you choose the other one. Either Milwaukee and the Grizzlies or yeah, probably those two.
Let's pull that up real quick. Milwaukee and the Grizzlies. I think I actually like Milwaukee. Milwaukee's one of the games that I like for tomorrow. So let's bring that up on the money baller. We'll dive into it a little bit further. Do you have any
Yeah, I
queries
actually was
on do you have any queries on that game at all?
um nah, it's just I mean, really it's kind of what we were talking about. I did go and listen to the interviews. I mean, all three guys talked about it, whether Doc Rivers, oh my bad, Glenn Rivers, Giannis and
Yeah.
Dame, they all talked about the focus hasn't been there. And they
Mhm.
all talked about they need to get back to sharing the ball. The ball has just been kind of sticking. And all the guys, well, Giannis and Dame both talked about how they were out of rhythm since they were gone for injuries. Like Dame said he was sick. He missed like 4 games. It's just been tough for him to get back into a rhythm, although he's been good in the fourth quarter. And
Mhm.
Giannis kind of just said the same things. So if all of them are talking about they need to be more focused, you know, this is the team that you can take advantage of. So
Yeah.
that's
That's what I
really
was
where
saying
I'm at.
earlier when we were looking at the last 10 games. Their offense has been struggling, but if you want to bounce back, this is the type of team you kind of take advantage of as far as, a team that doesn't play defense. They play an up-paced tempo. This could be one of those games where they start to flip their momentum. If we look at some of the numbers towards like the full season, these are some situations where the Raptors do tend to play well. 11-4 and 1 ATS as home dogs. When the Bucks are the less rested team, just 1-7 ATS. But if you look at some of the situational factors that we talked about, this is definitely one of those things where you have to look at that, right? Having to bounce back off of that loss to Portland and Brooklyn. Man, this has to be the game. From a total
Also,
perspective,
those
yeah,
games where they were covering was early in the season, I think. It has not been like
it
recently.
hasn't been like
Earlier,
that
there were the
recently.
scrappy Raptors. Now, not so much.
Yeah, but you can see here from an ATS perspective, they lost what three, four of the last five they failed to cover. So it's definitely
Mhm.
their momentum is kind of going in the wrong direction. So I could see the Bucks here covering. I could see a double digit win in this one. All right, let's go
What
on.
about the
Yeah,
first half even? I'm looking at it last 10 games like you do. Raptors 2-8. They're not even getting out the gate. I think if the Bucks come with that focus, they throw the first punch here and don't look back.
I believe it. Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. They should have the advantage on both sides there. All
I'm
right,
gonna
let's
write
go
that
on
and add that to
to.
my list. First half.
I'm not gonna lie. I actually already took the Bucks. Like I already put that up as a client play. So um, that is one of them. I have three already. I already played three three games for tomorrow. I wanted to catch
Some
the
good
night
stuff
the
out
line.
there.
Yeah, there are. All right, let's go to Mavs and Grizzlies. So we talked about this one a little bit. The rest advantage for the Mavs, but they are in the first game of back to backs. They have LA on deck. Third game in 4 nights for the Grizzlies, but they do have the revenge factor on their side. They are coming off of a loss to Golden State. Dallas is coming off a loss to Cleveland. They gave up 134. I feel like their defense has really been shaky, like back and forth, pretty much. Um, Memphis did win Dallas won the first matchup this season, 121-116. The line was 4.5, and they ended up winning by 5. Which way were you leaning on this one? The Grizzlies, right?
Yeah, the Grizzlies. I also let me see if I can put this on the screen. Try to see this works. Hopefully it does. Can you see this?
Let me add you up. There you go.
So yeah, it's just kind of what we're talking about. Mavericks without both of their superstars. I mean, they're losing by
Wow.
11 points per game. 0-5 straight up, 0-5 ATS.
Yeah.
And the Grizzlies, I mean, they just have been really good. Scottie Pippen has been good. It hasn't mattered that John Morant's been out. Like we said, it
Mhm.
goes back to last season. So
Yeah.
we already talked about what are they? Was it 19-6 or something like that in the first half as a favorite or first half
Yeah.
at home? I always forget which one it was.
So
I just
it's
know they've been good out the
four,
gate.
14-4 in the first half as at home, and then it's 19-6 as favorites. So both situations really good in the first half. You can see here, even with the less rest, 5-2 ATS, and then Mavs with more rest, 2-3 ATS in the first half. I could definitely see that first half look that you're talking about there.
Yeah, I think it. My bad. You can put yours back up there. I definitely think it's a spot where you can get a double up. So I did notice though those 5 games where the Mavericks were without Luke and Kyrie. It
Yeah.
was some situations where they kind of kept it close a little bit for the first half and just fell apart in the second half for whatever reason. So keep that in mind. Although the Grizzlies have been good out the gate.
I like it. I like it. All right, so that's it. We went through 2 games. Let me stop sharing the screen there. All right, so we went through every game. Actually, talked about the lines, the line movements, a couple of games that we liked. We wanted to break down fully. So we showed the resources we use: the moneyballer.com, Killer Sports, the free live odds page. Skee, before we head out, any comments or any leans that you want to give out to the viewers here?
Well, I appreciate y'all all tapping in, man. It's a lot of people in the chat. Shout out to Mark A, Daryl Benton, Casey was in the building,
Yes, sir.
Oakley in here, a lot of the usual suspects. So I appreciate y'all showing up and supporting the show. If you guys like the show, hit the like button for us. It definitely does help us out. Um, for myself, I mean, I got a long list of games that I could get to the window with. I guess I'll shout out of the long list the ones that maybe are sticking out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Bucks -6.5. Rando rebounds and assists. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Sounds pretty good. Cat, if his rebounds come out at 13.5 again, it's really hard for me to look the other way. So I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
about that. The Grizzlies we talked about, that looks good. So those are the ones that sound like decisions need to be made pretty soon.
I like it. All right, so for me, I did say that Milwaukee is one of my plays for tomorrow. So I'll give out a couple more leans. I think Dallas team total under, or just taking Memphis and fading Dallas, like what you showed earlier on Killer Sports. You showed, what was it, Luca and Kyrie out 0-5 straight up, and ATS just losing by double digits primarily. So I think Dallas team total under, or just Memphis on the side. Um, I think those would be, out of the ones that we talked about, probably one of the more better leans that I have. I might actually get to the window with that Dallas team total under too. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I already got 3 games on the board. You can find all our stuff over at wagertalk.com. We do have you can see it scrolling on the bottom down there. Get a 3-day all access pass for myself or Skee. Just use promo code ATS at checkout, and it's a $29. It's $29. Um, I don't know what the actual regular price is, but I know NBA has been pretty good. I went 1-2 today in the NBA, but overall I think 9-12. Oh, sorry, 9-3 in the last 12. The last since Christmas break, everything's been pretty solid NBA and all that stuff too. So hopefully, how are you doing over in the NBA, Ski?
Lately it's been trending upwards. Like I said last time, the season started slow.
Mm-hmm.
Today I had one play in the NBA. I won. I think yesterday I had a couple plays in the NBA and won. The weekend was good overall. Whether it's all sports, I know that 3 day pass is everything. We only talk NBA here, but college football has been profitable. College basketball has been profitable.
Oh, yeah.
NFL, I did split yesterday, but NFL we're up too, and NBA. NBA, I think is honestly slightly down because of that poor start to the season, but it's not unfamiliar territory. I've done this year after year after year, and we
Yeah.
always end up profitable. So things are headed in the right direction.
We
All
know who
sports.
playoff P. We know who the real playoff playoff Skee. That's who it is. Yeah. All right. Well, that's the end of the show, guys. Shout out to, like what Skee said, shout out to everyone in the chat. Make sure you guys leave a comment after the show. This is only our second show at night. So if you guys have any recommendations, if you want to drop your plays in the comments as well after the show, do it. Just go ahead and do that. We'll try to respond when we can as well. And then we'll be back. I think every weekday. We know no Fridays and no Saturdays. Some of y'all know why. But yeah, so Sundays through Thursdays we'll be here 10 p.m. Pacific. So we'll catch you then, guys. Peace.
And I had to cut out some fun to make it here today. So yeah, I can't do any more weekend. I already had to cut out some fun tonight.
All right,
we appreciate
we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, peace.